Hello guys, Deni is with you as always. After watching the Fallout series, I had a strong desire to go to some familiar, very atmospheric RPG world. This feeling sometimes wakes up all of us. That's why I've put together this collection of RPGs for you, which it's definitely worth returning to in 2024. Click on the like, click on the subscription. If you haven't subscribed yet, well, let's go. Well, starting with such a game now is the most logical thing to do. The legendary Fallout, in which I'm running and kicking rad roaches and raiders with sticks right now. In general, Fallout after the series managed to break the online record, which he could not beat for the last 5 years. It's not surprising. The series follows the atmosphere with patience. I don't think it makes any sense to tell you what to do in a here. But what is worth mentioning is there is a hint about 5th part. If in the 6th episode of the series send a text message to Vaultek's number, you will receive a message saying that Vaultek will return to us in 33 weeks. It sounds at least intriguing. And here in front of you is not an old game at all, but at the same time, probably the most adequate of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's a little less RPG and a little more turn-based tactics. This is a game that is cool in absolutely all directions. Each move is a small task for your strategic mind, where options for action change all the time, but there is always an optimal solution. Fighting is a thrill not only gameplay but also audiovisual. Every ability of every hero has its cool animation, the characters are perfectly voiced, and the battlefield is effectively blown to pieces. But besides the fights, there's a lot of everything. There is a small open world in the hub location. There are a lot of conversations on various topics and a lot of optional tests. There is even a relationship simulator from Persona, and there are a bunch of costumes with different colors. Well, add a lot of minor puzzles and a huge number of ways to influence the gameplay of each character. From straightforward pumping to tuning each card, it's an unrealistically elaborate piece. While the developers of the second part of Bloodlines are preparing the ground for the release of the second part of the game, why don't we remember where it all started and go to the first? It was released, to put it mildly, a long time ago, 20 years ago, but it still remains a top RPG. The phenomenon of the game is its incredible flexibility in terms of RPG elements. Each clan has its own mechanics. Do you want to be as pacifist as possible? You are welcome. Do you want to become a psychopath? You are welcome. Do you want to go through the game, through dialogues, fighting only with the main bosses? You are welcome. The game is incredibly replayable and offers a new experience with each new playthrough. Each clan can be played in different ways, but there is also a phenomenality in the quests and the plot, but you will understand this already by diving into it. If you're looking for old masterpieces, you can check out the Mass Effect Legendary Edition. BioWare perfectly saved the trilogy and released the Legendary Edition without putting the 4th part of the game in it, which is good by the way. Almost all modern AAA projects still can't be compared with good old Mass Effect. It's a great space opera with emotional swings, in a good way. You will find an excellently written story that runs through all 3 games. The main characters who become more close to your heart than parents by the end of the game. The antagonists are very interesting and can even make you wonder if they are wrong in their judgments. In general, it is a masterpiece in all aspects. Borderlands, as for me, is not going through the worst of times right now. That the game is about Tina, or for example, part 3. Third game, as for me, turned out to be the reference part of the series. The plot of the game generally continues all the content that was previously in the franchise. There was a place for characters from the first part, the second, the prequel, and even tales from the Borderlands. I won't say that the narrative needs them all very much, but they are there and it's nice. Everything revolves around the search of vaults. Lilith gathers a team of many characters of the franchise familiar to the player in order to prevent the 2 streamer villains from gaining the power of these vaults. The game is played pretty crazy and fun, especially if you do it in a cooperative, I think many of you don't know that Warhorse, the developers of this wonderful game, had announced the second part. What will happen there is not yet clear, but you can prepare and remember what suffering is in the first game, because it is the best simulator of the Middle Ages that is now available. The most important thing in this game is the atmosphere. It's all about the little things, complete freedom of action, the absence of invisible walls, a large and beautiful outdoor world in which it's interesting to just walk around. If you want to get some fresh air, I recommend that you do it here and not outdoors. If Baldur's Gate has visited you, but you also want something similar, then one of the best places to go after it will be Pillars of Eternity 2. This is a continuation of the first part, but if you did not play the first one, you will always be accompanied by hyperlinks in the text, which will try to explain to you what was in the first game. Yes, it's a good move. Nevertheless, you can get tired of hyperlinking each dialogue 10 times. Therefore, here, I would even recommend going to the first part to taste the whole narrative to the fullest. In contrast, part 1, the second, is related to navigation and piracy. This time, instead of your fortress, you have your own ship. There is more than one ship, you can buy better for the appropriate money. The immersion in the game is maximum, so I highly recommend it. A legendary game that has been feeling very good for 10 years. And moreover, it can still compete with Poe, Diablo, and others. Not overloaded like PoE, but more variable than Diablo. I always want to compose some crazy build for myself, and the game lets me do it. Builds are built from a combination of 2 selected classes. Items worn by the hero, components that enhance objects, and constellations that vaguely resemble a tree in a field, but are not the same thing at all. The disadvantage in the builds is that there are not very many variations of top-tier clothes. The plot is classic dark fantasy, as it should be. The situation is the same as with PoE. A very interesting plot is not served in almost any way, except for the walls of the text. If you get involved in the study of these walls, then in each location some interesting stories related to events of the main plot are revealed, and the motivations of the characters are revealed more fully. The only thing that can scare you away is the rather faded graphics. Probably one of the best games in the Lord of the Rings universe is the Middle-earth series. It's especially nice that the games are now sold in one pack. It is called A Set of Shadows and will give you a complete immersion in the world of Middle-earth. There are both games and there are DLC for them too. By the way, if we compare the first and second parts, this is heaven and earth. The second one is better literally in all aspects, starting from the plot, ending with the game world. Well, the system with orc captains, fortress captures, arenas, and everything else also brings liveliness to this whole adventure. Very cool in my opinion. While the developers of Hades are running tests of the second part, we can remember how cool is the first game, chopping up evil spirits in the procedurally generated labyrinths of hell, and along the way, romancing metrosexual gods is a pure distilled thrill. Not to mention the fact that we are not playing for a homunculus who is digging in the shit in the basement of the house, but for a gorgeous, handsome man, the son of Hades himself, whom dad does not let him out of the house to drink with friends. And it's all framed quite deep, varied pumping, manic elaboration of details, excellent style, and traditionally masterpiece music. But most importantly, death is not annoying, but is part of the narrative. Each race is truly unique and always gives something new. And if you want to listen to all the dialogues, you will need at least 600 hours. That says a lot. Did you know that The Outer Worlds has a pretty solid pack of different DLC? And yes, there are very good ones, but the game itself has become, for me personally, an adequate analog of Fallout 76. The game is as similar to him as possible, and in addition, something a little more insane from the Borderlands was added into it. It turned out to be quite fun. I definitely like the visual style. The game is not freezing, the quests are not suffocating, the dialogues are funny, and pumping affects the variability, sometimes creating quite funny situations. Perhaps the only thing missing is the scale of the action. Even though the events take place in space, in a relatively open world, the feeling of localness of what is happening did not leave me for almost the entire game, which is definitely a minus for such a setting as space opera. But what's cool is that the developers are doing the second part, and it promises to be more ambitious. Talking about the second parts. In case you don't know, the Titan Quest developers are doing the second part. There are few details yet, except that the setting will be the same. Therefore, I suggest you remember what happened there in the original game. Moreover, the developers have long provided the game with a mountain of updates. But I would actually recommend going in a slightly different way. Play with mods. You will be surprised by this game after many years. For example, not so long ago, I rode a Soul Visor from the Steam Workshop. It has become a million times more interesting to play. In general, by the way, I would not recommend playing it on a PC, but on a phone, because it is there, and also with all the add-ons. So driving in the background in the evenings while lying in bed is really fun. Well, it also works without the internet. Welcome to the 35-40 hour adventure. Here is a post-apocalyptic game in a world similar to Fallout. Only it is absolutely devoid of any censorship and various indulgences in favor of fashionable minorities in our time. Here you can play real villains, and the variability here is almost a benchmark. Here you can really betray and kill good characters and friends by siding with complete scumbags. Here you can pick up a factory for the production of various chemicals from a bandit where children work in shackles so that they now will work for you instead. And there are a lot of such moments here. So if you want an RPG with huge replayability, try it. It is not without flaws, but she's cool. Well, that's all for today. Click on the like, click on the subscription if you haven't subscribed yet. Be well. Peace.